Welcome to episode 197 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Tom Albano, Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Follow us on our website, etbpodcast.com, as we add new bloggers and more info and a lot of stuff along the way as well. Make sure you listen on our audio-only platforms, Acast, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a lot more. Also, at the end of the episode, we'll get into some info on Football Friday, which is around the corner. So make sure you tune into the end of the episode for that as well. A lot to get into. This has probably been the most intriguing episode we've had in quite a long time with big, large sports headlines.
Yeah, so obviously, in terms of quantity, we've actually been like a little shorter over the last few weeks, which has been nice, but obviously we have several stories that have kind of blown up. We'll start things off talking about all the updates since our last episode revolving around James Harden and his feud with Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers. We saw a former social media employee use the NBA's Facebook page to basically make some not so nice remarks about what goes on behind the scenes in the league, allegedly. Also, allegedly, the Knicks said that a former employee allegedly took some files with him to the Raptors, and now the Knicks have placed a lawsuit in court against the Toronto Raptors. Yes. It's the Cardinals and Astros situation all over again, except this time in the NBA. Speaking of MLB, however, we do have an update on Wander Franco, and we may never see him on the field ever again.
Oh, no. With all the dumb things he's done, maybe we won't ever see him again.
Allegedly. The Colts actually, shockingly, giving Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade. There are several teams, one in particular, the Dolphins, who are interested in trading for him, but can the Colts and a other NFL team actually come to terms on an agreement? That seems to be the harder part in all of this. And then just everything that's been going on with the White Sox. You have the longtime EVP, general manager, out, Ken Williams, Rick Hahn, their expectations on what moves are next, and then in a bit of a breaking development right before we started recording, Tony La Russa is back.
Guess who's back? Back again. Yeah, exactly. But all right, we got a lot to get into. Let's start with the NBA and James Harden. This is going to take a little bit of time, so bear with us because there's a lot of pieces happening here.
This is actually technically two banners, one banner broken up into two, because there's several things that have happened in the time since we were last on the air. So right before, because some of these developments came before last week's episode aired technically, but it had been after our recording session. So between the time since our last episode, our last recording session, the NBA has launched an investigation into this Harden-Morey feud. The NBA basically interviewed James Harden, and what Harden told them is something that basically I think you had alleged to me last week that was going around, that the whole idea of him opting into the contract in order to make a trade easier and more quick. And when the trade fell through, Morey basically told him sucks to suck. And Harden, that's where we led to the clip of Harden in China calling Daryl Morey a liar in front of all those people. And the NBA has fined James Harden $100,000, the maximum it can fine a player, according to league terms. However, the NBPA has put its foot down and said no, and is now fighting it.
This whole thing is ridiculous. Now, you could say that there's fault on both sides of this coin. And so, like we just said, the NBA launched an investigation. James Harden gets in trouble for having an opinion, which I was telling Tom before is a little ridiculous. But there's a few pieces here to really explain this. So, obviously, the NBA is mad because of the prior situation with Dame Lillard and his trade requests, demanding trade requests, his agent basically going out and saying, I will not take anything except the Miami Heat. So I don't know if this is like the first person is made an example of, but the second person is the one that gets the punishment, which is ridiculous, by the way, because if you're going to fine James Harden $100K, you got to go and now find Dame Lillard $100K, and I think his was worse, Dame Lillard, because his agent essentially went out and said, no, I only want the Miami Heat.
I want one team.
I want one team, and you know what? And this is the only part of this that I'm going to defend James Harden on, and I can't believe I'm saying that. You can't fine him because he called Daryl Morey a liar. You can't do that. Sorry, you can't do that. That's an opinion.
Yeah, I don't know how you find somebody, at least to the level of $100,000 for something that's, well, point blank, like he said, she said.
Right, and what Tom was referring to before is, if you didn't catch last episode, James Harden was on an Adidas trip in China. That's one of his sponsors. And he was talking to a crowd of like kids and young adults. And he basically was saying that Daryl Morey, the GM of the Sixers, is a liar. I don't want to be here. I will not play for this organization. And the NBA kind of took that as, well, you can't go after our people. That's a no-no. And you're making the NBA look awful. How many guys have made the NBA look like a shithole because of the stuff they've said? Kyrie Irving? Anybody?
Well, Kyrie Irving was defending James Harden in the last week.
Well, that's a whole nother thing we'll get to in a few minutes. But if you should go find Kyrie Irving then, if you think that the NBA is in a bad limelight. Look at this situation. I'm sorry. You want to warn James Harden for calling Daryl Morey a liar? Be my guest. You can't find him $100K. I'm not, and again, Tom knows this. I'm not a James Harden defender by any way, shape, or form. But you can't find somebody for an opinion. You can't.
I don't know if we can rightly say it's an opinion, but it's definitely a he said, she said. Where's Daryl Morey's side to it about, because we talk about James Harden, about his claim of, the NBA told me to opt in. I mean, the Philadelphia 76ers told me to opt in so that way they can make a trade work, and then the trade fell through. Like, where is Daryl Morey's side to this story?
Here's the other issue, and you and I discussed this over the last couple of days. Just because he said, I'm going to trade you, if the offer is not there to make fair value, and people, and I'm going to say this again when we've talked about other trades in the past, including Dame Lillard, the numbers have to match. The salaries have to be even, whether it's trading one guy for four guys, it doesn't matter. All the salaries have to add. That's the one sport where the cap numbers are the most important. So I'm tired of people saying, well, just trade him and take three guys back. It doesn't work like that.
Which is why when we talk about the team that he was most favored, or that he favorited, which is the Clippers, like that's where we had our conversation off the air of, I don't know how you make this deal without trading Kawhi or Paul George, or doing a situation where you have those three names and then you have a bunch of league minimum guys as your bench.
Right, and that's why it's not as easy, and that's why the big three doesn't work, because of the way they've changed the cap rules and everything that has changed. You're not seeing big threes anymore. You're seeing like a big two plus like B and C level players, because that's really what's leading a team.
Well, I think role players are definitely probably some of the most underrated portions of a successful NBA team, because even if you have a big three, again, the example that I always bring up, look at a Miami Heat where you had all those different role players. Look at a Chicago Bulls where you had all those different role players. If you're just relying on stars in this league, especially in a modern NBA, if you're just relying on stars, then you're in for a bad time.
Yeah, but if you look like back at the Lakers when they had Kobe and Shaq, or Kobe and Powell, like that totally was a resurgence for Kobe when Powell came back and they won back-to-back titles. But you're talking about great role players like an Andre Iguodala over the past 5 or 6 years, or I'll go back in the history, Robert Horry, who won the most rings but didn't really do it as a guy. I think he won like 3 with the Lakers or 2 with the Spurs, and he actually won one, I think, with the Olajuwon Rockets back in the day. So role players are key. They're important. Ray Allen, is Ray Allen a star or a role player? That's kind of a debatable topic.
On that Heat team, it was more of a 4.
Yeah, because he was a 3-point guy. He could hit from the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, he kept them in the Spurs series.
Right.
I mean, hitting
hitting
2 threes.
Basically won them that series.
So role players are important. But just to kind of circle back with Harden, this whole situation is insane. The NBA kind of now stuck its neck out where it didn't belong. But the other argument I will make, why is the NBPA defending this idiot? Why?
Well, here was going to be my question to the first part of that about the NBA sticking its neck where it didn't belong. Because, yeah, you're saying, the NBA is finding him over a comment over making the liar remark. But would it have been a worse issue, Nick? Because I think I even asked this last week because, I mean, you know how we are, with this famous banner. Do you think it would have been worse if the NBA didn't put its head in? Would we have been going after Adam Silver and saying, is this a situation where you have to step in?
Well, we'll get to another reason why there's an Adam Silver slip up in a few minutes. But my point is that the NBA stuck its neck where it didn't belong. The one time the NBA decided to get involved in a situation when Adam Silver usually will just mosey around and try to make friends with the players rather than dealing with situations that happen. And then you have this where they finally say, oh, we want to pick on James Harden. We want to pick on him. We'll fine him $100K, but we won't do anything to Daryl Morey or the Sixers. And the way they handled that.
Well, maybe that's part of why the NBPA is defending James Harden. But the other thing is, again, it's a players association. It's a players union. Obviously, they're going to defend their players wherever they want to or not. Now, they may come up with some sort of reason. I think I told you this right before we hit record. They may come up with some sort of reason saying something about Dame or saying something about Morey not getting some sort of punishment as well. But the reality is they could, be saying to themselves, we don't want to defend this guy, but we're obligated to. Like
it's an A-Rod situation all over again, where basically,
and that's the thing. It's not like A-Rod where A-Rod was suing the Players Association. James Harden is using the players. In this case, the Players Association is basically acting like a guardian angel for James Harden.
Well, no, it's like any other players association. They're going to defend even the biggest assholes in all of the leagues. They have to defend because those guys pay dues into the players association. They're part of a players association that defends every player and every person. So, but I don't get it. The reason I compare it to an A-Rod situation is because James Harden just has no regard for anybody except himself. A-Rod was the same way. All he cared about was himself. He didn't care about the Yankee organization. He didn't care about Steinbrenner and the ownership. He cared about himself. And he was too busy suing baseball because he felt he did nothing wrong. Same thing with Harden. Harden just demands trades because he thinks he's done nothing wrong, and he's like the big man on campus.
And we saw how after that 162 game suspension, how A-Rod basically turned himself around in the last couple of years of his career, and basically some of the regrets ever since then.
But this is a lose-lose situation for the NBA. They can't win. They find Harden $100K. The NBA, now the NBPA, who didn't have enough ammo against the NBA, is now going to fight. These two organizations fight, and they don't have any regard for one another.
Especially, and it's funny that all this is popping up, Nick, especially at a time where they're trying to incentivize more in the regular season through that in-play tournament, that they're trying to get their stars to play more by putting in that the 65 game minimum for all those season awards.
And you know what? That is the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life. Oh, well, you got to play 60 whatever plus games to be an MVP. Who cares? Who cares? It should be whoever has the best numbers. Whoever has the best numbers and is on a team that matters, that should be an MVP. To go back to the example for a second, I just want to go back to the example of when A-Rod won MVP with Texas. Was that the best team? No. They gave him the MVP because he just destroyed that ballpark and was averaging 60 home runs a year. I don't know.
Yeah, this is just, it's a bad look. But now there is also another side to the story that also sort of slipped its way, only because it sort of involved James Harden, but it didn't under the rug. It looks more at Joel Embiid. So Joel Embiid, as part of this story of this whole long saga about James Harden, because I had asked on last week's episode, well, where is Embiid in all this? And around the time our episode was airing, we found out. So Joel Embiid, per report, tried to get James Harden to stay. He was trying all summer to convince him about, the 76ers and such, and ultimately to no Embiid. But now, come with that report, also came some speculation about if Joel Embiid will ask out next. And in that same report, a claim that Daryl Morey is secretly hoping for a 76ers rebuild.
This is just getting worse. Like it's like peeling back the layers of an onion and like just keep finding more and more to this story. And first of all, if I'm Joel Embiid, I'm getting the fuck out of Philadelphia and running away at this point, because trust the process is fail the process right now. It's not working. It's over. Blow it up. It's over. The Sixers are not going to win. How long have we been in the trust the process for? 6-7 years now? Oh, well, we're going to win a championship. Give us 5 to 6 years. Joel Embiid. And how many guys have they brought in to play aside Joel Embiid? It has not worked. It just has not worked. And you had guys like Elton Brand, who was the GM of the organization. That didn't work out too well. Daryl Morey, who you just brought in. And in my opinion, Daryl Morey is not a top 200 executive in the NBA. He's a numbers guy at best. Daryl Morey's not a guy who's putting together an X's and O's of an organization. He's a numbers guy.
And by the way, just to get it in there, it was Goodwill who made this report.
Oh, Vince Goodwill. Yeah. He's been really good, by the way. I think he writes for Yahoo, I think.
My only thing, because you're talking about the process not working and such, and yes, in terms of conference championships, let alone NBA titles, because both of them, the number is 0. Here's my thing, though. You are the Philadelphia 76ers, and you have been around the top of the Eastern Conference for a few years now. Because, I mean, we even talked about it off the air. Like, the difference between the 76ers and the Yankees is that the Yankees are going through right now one of the worst stretches, one of the worst times that they've had recently in Major League Baseball. They're going through something that they haven't gone through 30, 40 years. The Philadelphia 76ers, yeah, they don't have all the success. They don't have any conference titles or NBA titles to show, but you have the reigning MVP in Joel Embiid. You're constantly like in the top 3 or 4 seeds, at least as recently in the Eastern Conference. You have been one of the teams in the Eastern Conference, one of the, in the mix for an NBA championship. All of a sudden, you're just going to close the window now.
Yeah, I mean, the window is closed. That's it. You know what? I'm closing the window right now. The window is closed.
You're closing the window because Harden doesn't want to be Embiid's psych.
First of all, the window, and most people are not going to tell the truth because everyone who watches the Sixers and Philadelphia, the window has been closed for years. That's the real honest truth. Okay? Because they just don't have winning chemistry in Philadelphia. They've never had winning chemistry in Philadelphia. The last time they had any winning chemistry in Philadelphia was when Allen Iverson was there.
And you were talking about practice.
Practice. I mean, the way Joel Embiid and James Harden, I don't think they ever had a relationship, to be quite honest. Like, they're two separate guys. James Harden is a ball-dominant guy. Joel Embiid is more of, I get the ball into the paint. So it's just one of those things where we need things to kind of smooth out. And we know that's not going to happen. But in my opinion, with Morey and with Harden, if I were Morey, and I said this, I think last week, I said this in a clip, but if I'm Daryl Morey, you know what I would say to James Harden?
You need to shut the fuck up.
Because I'm so tired of this. I would just keep saying that, okay? That's quite literally what I would say in this situation. And you know what?
I didn't realize you had put that sound effect in.
I surprised you with that one, didn't I?
Yes.
So, but literally, I would just keep saying, hey, James, you know what you need to do?
You need to shut the fuck up.
And get on the court. Literally just get on the damn court.
No, Nick, I think a trade is still possible. I think a trade is still possible with James Harden, as crazy as it is to believe. Because, Nick, I have a question for you, and you would know this better than I would. Is it possible that we could have inter-league or different countries in the leagues trade? Is that ever possible?
What, a trade? You think a trade is still possible?
No,
I don't think it,
not in the NBA. Could you go to a different league?
Oh, wait a minute. You mean
Guangdong Tigers. Ni hao! Ni hao! Ni hao!
First of all,
I think James Harden, he just visited China on his recent trip with the sponsor. I think a stint with he even expressed an interest in playing in China at some point in his career. I think a stint on this certain team.
Guangdong Tigers. Ni hao! Ni hao! Ni hao!
I think him and the Guangdong Tigers would be a perfect relationship.
He basically said, like you said, I'd rather play in China. It would be good. Buy a one-way ticket, go to China, and don't come back and bother our lives. I'm so tired of this. James Harden's ego is bigger than the country of China. I mean, seriously. You know what, James? I'll help you out. We'll dig you a hole to China so that you can get there quicker.
Hey, remember, China is the most populated country in the whole world, 1.2 or 3 billion people. That's a lot of ego.
It is a lot of ego. But I'm saying, I'll go start now. I'll go dig a hole for you so you can go to China, and we'll just send you down the hole, and then we'll plug the hole up so you can't come back. I'm just so tired of this. James Harden, stop bothering my life, please.
On that note, so you are of the opinion of if you're Embiid and you're seeing all this drama between Harden and Morey go down, you want out.
Get the fuck out. I literally would say get out. You're not going to win. There's so many other teams, dare I say, a team that you all root for that would be very happy to have Joel Embiid.
But how do you make that trade? If you're just because you're talking about making salaries match and sort of how not like if you're not just the Knicks but any team, how do you make such a trade happen?
I mean, you and I were looking at the NBA trade machine, which is used by ESPN to kind of figure it out. It's probably going to include either a Rand Barrett if you want Joel Embiid. I don't think Knicks doing it, but are they desperate for a star? Yes, they are desperate for a star in the worst way.
They are desperate for a star, but wouldn't you rather just continue to develop the youth and continue to develop within and then sign somebody as a free agent?
You're better off signing some free agent because that's all that does is cost you money. But if the trade is viable, then maybe they. Joel Embiid's got injury concerns. He's a star and he's an MVP. He's still got injury concerns. That's got to be taken into full account.
You're right.
I mean, it is what it is. The drama is going to continue until they figure it out. And in my opinion, I think James Harden is only going to come into camp one way.
He's fat!
Pretty much. All right. Let's now move off of James Harden. Let's stick with the NBA, but go into another story that is kind of interesting that happened. This might have been, if you didn't see it the day that it happened, you probably may have missed it. But a former NBA employee, basically somebody who had access to the social media accounts, used the company's Facebook page to basically lambaste Adam Silver and the league over the conditions that he was working in.
Excuse me while I grovel for a second. Now, what people are not realizing is, and people are going to say, oh, Nick, you're making fun of it. Of course I'm going to make fun of it partially, because how did they still have access? This employee apparently was not working there for quite a few weeks. And if you read the post, it says, I don't know how I still have access or how I'm still logged into this, but here I go. I mean, what? What are you doing?
Yeah, like the minute I resigned from a certain company that I worked for up until about 3 or so years ago, like the minute I resigned, I was removed from everything. Like it was like that quick.
When I worked at WABC, as soon as I left, all my credentials were gone right away. Now, I'm looking at the post right here for the NBA, and it took them 20 minutes to find it, by the way, which is even worse. So it was up for 20 minutes. So it says, how do I log out of this? Question mark. That should have been your first sign that there's a problem. Haven't worked here in weeks. Anyway, the NBA overextends its social media employees greatly to the detriment of their health and social lives for a salary of less than $50K annually after taxes. I worked 14-hour shifts without breaks at times. Shout out Adam Silver. We don't get health insurance until 90 days on the job. That's silly, isn't it? Glad I resigned. No need for a job to get in the way of your happiness. Donate to mental health causes. So the one thing you and I agreed on, the whole health insurance until 90 days, that's a standard.
I think part of that has to do with like technically like the first 90 days or so you're at a workplace, you're on
probation. Yeah.
So
first of all, whoever is in charge of the social media department should be fired because how do you let that post get out where everybody, as soon as I was on Twitter, I did a short video. If you go to our ETB Sports account, I jumped right on this when I saw this come out because I was like, what the hell is this? And I finally just said, Adam Silver's got to do better. If the working, first of all, a social media person in the NBA making $50,000 after taxes? Really?
Nick, the whole thing about some of those conditions, though, is I think unfortunately some of that is just also an unfortunate part of what the media industry is today.
Yeah, and the media industry is not paying a lot right now. That's a problem. But
no pay, but long hours.
Well, yeah, it's all work and not enough pay. Trust me. I know that. I worked almost full-time hours as a part-timer. I get that, but
and I don't say that. And I don't say that to make excuses for the NBA. What I'm saying that is, unfortunately, when it comes to media jobs, and I know this too. You and I both know this, is that the whole media industry is going to have to be shaken up somehow.
I mean, the one thing I'll say that's unacceptable is a 14-hour work shift. That's unacceptable. That's a legal issue if you're working a 14-hour shift.
And unfortunately, I've done my fair share of 14-hour days.
I've told you many stories where I've been in the city for 11, 12-hour shifts overnight, and I'm the only person inside the radio station.
Right.
Nobody.
Right. And again, I'm not saying that to poke fun at the guy or downplay any of the stuff. It's that I feel for this guy.
Yeah, but I mean, the NBA's got to take one on the head. That first it got out on the social media.
Without a doubt, because look what we just said. When you mentioned your place, when I mentioned my place, we said that the minute we were out of those companies, our login information, like we were done. We were done. This guy had access for weeks.
Yeah, that's the problem. He said haven't worked here in weeks, still had access to the credentials. Now, the way I would think of this, and this is just me being logical, and I know that's a bad thing to say at times, trying to be logical. Change the credentials!
But like it's a Facebook page, so don't you just have to go into the role setting and like
yes, it's that simple. Yes, remove them, and better yet, you want extra protection, block them from being near the page.
Well, you can't block them from the page if they have.
Yes, you can.
No, but
you block someone from having access to a page. I mean,
okay. Because what if they're still an NBA fan and want to watch I mean, look.
Well, I'm assuming if you had a problem with the NBA, you want nothing to do with it anymore.
Okay, fair. But I'm just saying, something along the lines of if somebody a normal if it was a normal resignation situation where there was no tension or anything like that. Just saying block
Yeah,
him from
that's
the page,
fine.
I'm just saying your thing of block him from the page, that can't rely on that.
Right, but I'm saying is if you're in a dispute like this is a serious dispute with mental health issues and all that stuff, you need to be separated for good, and not let them because you need to
My
block them
po-
so they don't say anything on social media.
Okay, but my point is, if it was just something as simple as removing them from being an admin from a Facebook page, that is pure unadulterated laziness from the
Well,
NBA
yes,
social media team.
if it was just oh, I'm going to this is an extreme example, but I'm going to work for Major League Baseball and leaving the NBA, you just remove them from the admin line. That's it. That's all you have to do, and it's really that simple. But how did he have access for weeks after he was not there anymore?
So that's why I go with this, although technically Adam Silver isn't in charge of social media, but whoever's in charge of social media over at the NBA just, I don't know, needs to get slapped silly or something. That's, like I said, that's unadulterated laziness, and that's unacceptable when you're in charge of social media for one of the biggest, arguably the biggest the second biggest sports league in North American sports.
I mean, even though Adam Silver's not directly correlated with social media, it's his league. He's the commissioner. So technically he's responsible for anything that involves a verified check mark with the NBA. Okay? So, and I totally understand the insurance thing he's going to lose. This person's going to lose. Because that's what happens at any company.
Mm-hmm.
The 14-hour work shifts, you and I can relate. That's a horrible thing in every way, shape, or form. It was borderline illegal what they did at my place, that I worked 12 hours straight, essentially, and I could barely take a bathroom break or get up and walk around because I was the only one in the radio station. So I get that wholeheartedly. But the difference in what I was doing is I literally had to keep a radio station on the air. So I literally had to sit there for 12 hours. This person could have literally gotten up and done whatever because it's social media. It's different. You could schedule the posts if you wanted to be quite honest. But I'm not begrudging the person. Let me be clear about that first.
Mm-hmm.
But this is Adam Silver's fault. And people look at that. But Nick, Adam Silver is just because he's the commissioner doesn't mean he has all this power. Well, guess what?
Oh my God!
Yes, Adam Silver is responsible. I'm getting done. The NBA is pissing me off, and it's the sport I like best.
Hold on. But or as Billy Mays used to say, but wait, there's more. There's one more NBA story we have to go to, and it actually does involve the Knicks since we brought them up earlier. The Knicks are taking the Raptors to court.
Oh my God!
The Knicks are alleging that a former employee took what's being called proprietary files with him to the Raptors that have included a prep book from the 2022-23 season, video scouting, hundreds of hours of videos, and frequency reports, play frequency reports.
God, proprietary files. By the way, is that spelled right or no? Can't tell. Proprietary. But my point is that.
Oh no, it's not. All right. There we go. Well, funny you say that, Nick, because in the words of Billy Mays, but wait, there's more. There's one more NBA story that we have to go through, and it does involve the Knicks because, well, we brought the Knicks up before. The Knicks are taking the Raptors to court.
Why am I not surprised? All right, Hank and Dichter, you're welcome.
The Knicks are taking the Raptors to court. They are alleging that a former employee who ended up going to work at the Raptors took what's proprietary files with them that have included a prep book from the 2022-23 season, video scouting, like hundreds of hours of videos, and play frequency reports, taking all of that with him to go work at the Raptors. So this might just be a situation, if you remember from the Major League Baseball, where we had the whole thing where the executive of the Cardinals used to work at the Astros, and they hacked into the Astros systems to get
Well,
all.
it wasn't hack. It wasn't hack. He still had access to the Astros files, and he tried to take them with him, and he got caught.
Yeah. So this is just another.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So I was trying to break this all down with reading the story, and like it got to the point where I was like, "What the hell is all of this?" Excuse me. And so it says the Knicks on Monday sued the Raptors and members of the Raptors organization and former Knicks employee whom they alleged illegally procured and then disclosed proprietary information to their rival. Now, there's so many examples of this where someone leaves a job, they get offered another job, which is a competitor.
Yep.
And they try to take everything with them. That's a no-no in the world of business. If something is let's try that again. Proprietary to someone's business, you can't take it with you.
It is illegal, especially if that information is classified, which, I'm certain, at least to some degree, some of these video scouting, and play frequency reports, they would have the little copyright thing of that it is property of the team. And
the C. Usually they put the C in the circle for copyright on it. But so it says, according to the copy of the lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court in Manhattan. Oh, you were asking this question the other day.
Is it going to be under American or Canadian law? And I guess it would be American because, one, the NBA is based in America, even though the Raptors are in Toronto. Number two, as you said, the lawsuit was filed in Manhattan, which is New York, which is America.
Right. So it says the Knicks state, and I'm badly going to butcher this guy's name, but Akichu Kuwu Oztom, who worked for the Knicks from 2020 to 2023, sent the Raptors thousands of confidential files, including play frequency reports, a prep book for the 2022-2023 season, video scouting files, opposition research, and more after the team began recruiting him to join in the summer of 2023, which is now, by the way. Right. And this just has like alarm bells written all over it. Like
if this is true, then that former employee should be in jail. I'm being very honest with you. If this is true, that former employee should be in jail. What he has done is something illegal. Like, you cannot, because I think when we talked about the Cardinals Astros situation, that guy went to jail for about 40 or so months.
Yeah, he did jail time for stealing proprietary information out of the Astros system. I mean, this is saying also that the Raptors head coach Dario Rakovic, player development coach Noah Lewis, and 10 unknown Raptors employees were also listed as defendants in the Knicks lawsuit, which I don't know if they're just doing that for effect because they have to name people in the lawsuit, but this is... the last time we had a significant lawsuit in the NBA like this, like, you have to go back to Tim Donaghy and the referee gambling scandal.
So here's my question, because we bring up Adam Silver and the need to take action and versus, taking action and not need it. So if you're Adam Silver, what do you do in this situation?
You can't do anything until you get, if it's a legal representation issue.
Let me be clear. Obviously, first this has to go through the courts.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Yeah,
but let's say there's some sort of settlement, or the Knicks end up winning this suit. Then what do you do with the Raptors at this point? Because this is not. I understand that we think that the NBA is not going to do anything, but it just doesn't sit right with me that the Knicks lost the second round pick for the whole Jalen Brunson thing. But this, basically with how the NBA and the NBA players are today, how tampering is just out in the open, and this is a actual stealing of files.
This is proprietary information being taken from one organization to another. But
this has to be at least some sort of fine and a loss of a draft pick or two, can it?
I thought about this the other night, and I don't know if you can blame the Raptors for this, because the employee in question going from the Knicks to the Raptors brought all the information over to the Raptors. Now, were they wrong for looking at all the videos and playbooks and stuff? Absolutely, they were wrong. But I don't know if you can blame the Raptors directly for this situation. The guy who was the former employee is the one that's responsible for this situation with the Knicks. They should be suing him, not the Raptors. That makes no sense to me at all. I mean,
I still feel like this former employee, if all this turns out to be true, I think he needs to do some jail time.
And it also says the Knicks alleged that Oztom, quote, illegally shared 3,358 video files and that the stolen files were accessed over 2,000 times by the Raptors defendants.
And that's the key. And I think, Nick, that's why they are in the lawsuit, is because the Raptors knowingly accessed this stuff.
That's the shh, don't tell anybody. We'll get away with it. Now, the only way that they could track that, so to speak, is unless he took it out of like a computer of the Knicks. And like usually when you work in a big organization, they track everything that's being taken out of their stuff. That's the only way you would find out. So, well, unless they saw their videos in other places that were being used, but 3,358 video files is a lot. That's a lot.
And that's not a oh, whoops, this was an accident. What he's done is wrong and we're very sorry. Over 2,000 times. That's deliberate.
It's more than deliberate. It's like on purpose. Like
no, that's what I mean.
Like you're getting, well, no, I'm just saying, like, I would just throw it to, like, you're doing it on purpose to get whatever you want. So Astom should be out of the league. He should be out of the league. He should not be allowed to work in the NBA anymore.
I say this. I think his behind belongs in jail.
It's going to be tough to really do that unless they have the full proof and they can show that the files were accessed. Because they're going to say, "Oh, well, Astom had the files." That's the guy that should be doing the jail time and be in trouble.
No, that's what I said. Yeah. The former employee.
So I don't know. This will play out, but I'm sure it'll end up like under a rug like a dust bunny anyway. So I don't think anything's going to happen. It should, but I don't think Adam Silver is going to do anything.
If nothing happens of this, then it's another Adam Silver slip up.
Of course it is. Of course it's an Adam Silver slip, because why not? Let's add James Harden, the social media, and now a lawsuit between the Knicks and the Raptors.
The NBA is just, everything's fine. It's like that meme where the dog is sitting in the kitchen and everything's on fire. That the dog is Adam Silver. Everything is fine.
You know what, Adam Silver? You know what you're doing to me right now?
Emotional damage.
The NBA is causing the emotional damage right now because they can't run the league properly.
All right. We got 15 minutes or so. Let's go into some of the other stories from around sports. Update on the Wander Franco scenario. Well, he's been moved from the restricted list onto administrative leave, so it's coming off as this non-punishable thing. He's still getting paid. However, according to a report from Hector Gomez, it is very unlikely he ever plays in Major League Baseball again.
Yeah, this is a tough one. We've been on this all week. By the way, shout out to Hector Gomez for retweeting one of our tweets, actually, when we put it out. This tough story.
I know. I was going to say, listen, I get some of the hate that has been coming at us and some of the other. It's not just us. It's plenty of others who have been getting, a lot of heat for this story, saying, the picture on the Instagram post that has been taken down. But the thing is, it's being investigated still by the Dominican authorities. So we're still dealing with a very legal and very serious kind of situation. So
let me give you one more. They've removed all the shrink wrap stuff out of the stadium. Did you see that?
Yeah. And here's the thing. Let's say in a best case scenario for Wander Franco, all of this proves to be untrue and he comes back into Major League Baseball. I still think listen, even in that kind of scenario, I still think if you're to Rays, what you're doing about removing all this stuff is still the correct thing to do, because you don't know how long he's going to be absent. It could be he's back as soon as next season. It could be as long as he's never around ever again. So you're in a situation where basically the Rays have to prepare for a worse. They have to prepare for a future without Wander Franco. And if somehow he comes back and plays Major League Baseball again, then you get him again. But at this point, like, the Major League Baseball season is not going to stop just because Wander Franco is.
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying the Major League Baseball season is going to stop and the Rays season is not going to stop. But you need to cut bait. You need to cut bait. You need to move on. You need to void this contract, because even if he comes back, and they say, okay, well, he didn't do whatever, it's a damaged reputation, and you don't want to deal with it.
Now, but here's the thing, Nick. And again, we talked about this with Tatis. We talked about this with the Bauer thing. If whatever moral clause or whatever, like, let's say none of this holds up, and you say cut anyway, I don't think the moral clause is going to go in, which means you are going to have to pay Wander Franco still over that decade or so. That's money the Rays are going to have to eat. And I don't know if that, like, if the Rays can't get out of the contract, they're screwed.
I don't know. Something, and again, allegedly, obviously saying this, I something tells me something went down in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's small, something went down. And you wouldn't just start removing everything out of the stadium if you didn't think something bad was on the horizon, if something was around the corner. I mean, like you said, the DR authorities are in it. The U.S. authorities are in it. Major League Baseball is now investigating. You wouldn't have all these people investigating and going through everything if you didn't think something happened. I mean, the MLB is notorious for sweeping things under the rug. This one, they're not sweeping under the rug. Obviously, something happened. We're not being told yet, but something obviously happened.
Well, I mean, when you consider the circumstances of the allegations, even if something didn't happen, it's something you have to take seriously.
Yeah, I mean, and people are saying, well, you don't know. You don't know what's going on. Why were the posts up then? The reports that he was supposedly dating a 14-year-old girl when he was 18.
But like on that allegation, what do you expect MLB to do? What do you expect the Rays to do when a serious allegation comes out like that? They can't just bring Wander Franco onto the field and go la-di-da-di, everything's okay.
They also fucked up by continuing to do the giveaway, the Wander Franco snapback giveaway. I mean, come on!
But didn't that come out day of?
I mean, I think it was the next day, wasn't it?
No,
after?
No, I think it was day of. Well, it started making its rounds on social media the day of. That's a tough.
I think it was before the game, though.
Only a couple of hours.
Okay, you still could have removed the giveaway.
With only 1 hour?
I mean, think about it. These organizations usually know way before we know. They have way more inside information than we ever will have. So if we only knew an hour or 2 hours before the game, they obviously knew a couple days before.
A couple of days? I don't know, Nick. The social media post, Nick, it only went up. Like, when they only found out about it when everybody else was finding out about it.
No, but I'm saying is organizations have way more invested insiders that know things way before the media does, is my point. So if they knew, I'm just saying, if they knew, they could have removed that giveaway. I don't care if it's a sponsor or not.
That's where I'm disagreeing with you. I can't. That's not on the team. A third-party social media post is not on the team.
No, not the post. I'm saying they could have removed the giveaway.
Okay, then what do you tell the 7-year-old who's coming to a stadium for the first time?
That's a tough question. I mean, but do you want them knowing who Wander Franco is now as a possible, what? And that's what the kid has a memory of?
But if it's only with an hour or two to go to the game, you have to do something. You can't just not give them a hat.
You're going to have to do, whoever had a ticket to the game, you got to give them something else.
Like you're going to basically have to clear out the team store and close it for a day, basically.
I think it's worth it considering what the reputation could be.
And I'm just saying that, you can't just that's not a decision you dilly make.
No, I agree with you, but it's a lose-lose situation. That's pretty much what I'm saying.
Yeah, let's move on. Just a little update. to the Jonathan Taylor situation as well. The Colts have finally given Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade. Now, there are several teams that are interested or reportedly are expressing interest, one of them being the Miami Dolphins. However, apparently, in some recent updates, the whole situation is Jim Irsay and the Colts want a first round pick, and some rival general managers and executives, unnamed because they're going through, the likes of Schefter and Rappaport and company, are like, they'll give second round picks, they'll give like packages involving second and thirds and fourths, but are not willing to give a first.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some reports that apparently the offers are higher than they were expecting for some of the teams. In my opinion, I think I told you this the other day, that if as long as they get a first round pick, they should be happy and move on.
But here's my whole thing. Like, as much as we, in a kind of a rare, I guess a little bit of a rarity for us defended the owners, we were talking about the running backs and talking about, I think it's very hypocritical of Jim Irsay and the other owners to go, well, the state of the running back, you don't need much, and you don't need a running back. The day of the bell cows are over. They're not worth much, and then demand a first round pick. I think that's a little hypocritical. It's understandable considering what we talked about with the Colts, and that Jonathan Taylor is their only proven star right now, because of course you have a rookie quarterback coming in. But at the same time, you can't make those comments about, oh, if Jonathan Taylor, was gone or I were gone the next day, the world would just move on. Like,
I
and
mean,
then a first round pick.
Irsay's got a reputation of throwing stones at glass houses. We know this. I mean, he will say anything like any other owner to make a buck. And if that means he has to destroy the reputation of his players, he will do it. And that's what a lot of NFL owners do. They don't care.
But that's why I'm saying one of these things where it's like a second round pick or a second and third or a package involving, I think even then you got to take it.
Right. And Jonathan Taylor definitely has value. Like, we're not disputing the fact that Jonathan Taylor can be a good running back. I just think Jim Irsay is a horrible owner with a horrible reputation. And I think that's part of the reason why Jonathan Taylor wants out, because he doesn't want to deal with the owner anymore, who doesn't, one, want to pay him, two, is making shit up about guys. I mean, it's almost turning into Jerry Jones a little bit in Indianapolis.
I think the only way you convince one of these teams and Taylor to get a first round for that is this would have to be a sign and trade situation where you give him the extension and then trade him away.
I don't even know. Do they do that in the NFL? I don't know if they do that.
They do sign and trades, I think.
The only league that really does sign and trades is really the NBA. That's really the league that does sign and trades. But Jonathan Taylor's under contract. He's in a catch-22 where they really need to figure out.
NFL contracts are not capped, so there is no need to sign and trade like they do in the NBA.
Right.
Okay.
So they got to trade him. Now, by the way, the Dolphins would be an insane team for him to be a running back.
The Dolphins right now, they have some decent backs, but it's almost like a back by committee, and they're still debating about who could be the back. If JT came in, he would be the main back, point blank.
Oh, that's not even a question. Jonathan Taylor would be number one. As long as he's healthy, obviously, he would be the number one. But that would be insane for Tua to have Jonathan Taylor lining up next to him. Like, that would be insane.
And still have Tyreek Hill as one of your wide receivers.
Yeah, I would say that totally would be insane.
That would just make, we talked about the AFC East being the toughest division in football. That would just make the AFC East the most stacked division in all of football.
Now, I don't know if I trust Tua still by any means with all the concussions and everything.
But you know what? If Tua goes down and you're forced to go to the backup, you can still have, Tyreek Hill catching balls, and then you could just hand off to Jonathan Taylor.
I mean, that's one of those teams kind of where the quarterback can be a little bit replaceable in certain aspects, where as long as you have the pieces, then it works out.
You have some flexibility depending on what happens with Tua and his health.
I mean, look at the Chiefs. I mean, don't get me wrong, Patrick Mahomes will always be the number one. But like when he went down for a week, I forgot who they plugged in last year. But like he basically stepped in and had all the pieces, so it didn't matter. Like, so as long as you have a great team around you, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is for the most part. Let me be clear about that. But this is a great situation. If Jonathan Taylor could get the Dolphins, that would be an insane spot.
Back to baseball for a second. A lot of news developing with the White Sox. Obviously, the White Sox, just like our Yankees, going through a season where it should have been a lot better, and then just everything from the fact that certain players aren't performing, Tim Anderson and all that he's gone through, getting knocked out by Jose Ramirez for such, the whole dispute about him and Grandal, the whole idea of the locker room culture. And so all that has boiled over in the last couple of days, Nick, where White Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf has announced that Ken Williams and Rick Hahn, longtime EVP, general manager, that they have been relieved of their duties. Chris Getz is expected to be promoted to general manager, while Rangers executive Daryl Morey is likely to end up joining a team in a baseball operations role. And Nick, very recently, and I say very recently, like right before we started recording, Tony La Russa is coming back to the team as a consultant.
Yeah, that makes no sense. That's like if the Braves decided to bring back Bobby Cox to work inside the organization. But I don't know. I mean, this should blow up the White Sox. That's essentially what we're saying at this point. Like, it kind of sucks because over the last couple of years, they developed a lot of nice young talent, and they kind of blew it up, and now it's awful. Like, I don't know what to say anymore. Jerry Reinsdorf is a terrible owner. Like, I know I think he owns the Bulls, and I think, was it the Blackhawks? I think also. I think he owns most of Chicago sports, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on in the south side of Chicago, but like, this team is done. And they have a great pitching prospect in Dylan, what's his name? Cease. Dylan Cease is a great pitcher. And for some reason, they didn't trade him at the deadline because they said he was untouchable.
Right now in Chicago.
Like, they should have traded him and rebuilt.
They should have.
But I get it if they can get other pieces. But who's going to play in Chicago with the White Sox? No one.
We don't even know if the White Sox are going to play in Chicago in the future.
Well, this could be the first team in the Nashville expansion, but that's a story for another day.
I was going to say, because they're joining the Brewers, and even the Orioles are joining up in potential teams that could relocate. It's just, Manfred, what's going on now?
I don't know. Do we have time for one more story quickly or no?
I think so. I think it's interesting to bring up Apple being interested in buying ESPN. This is just, Nick, this would flip the media industry on its head.
This wouldn't just flip the media industry. This would flip the stock market and the market on its head, because this is a huge, and we talked about this, I think either last week or the week before, that Penn National divested from Barstool and got in bed with ESPN, and they're taking the Barstool Sports app and turning it into the ESPN Bet. And now they're getting involved in the gambling business when ESPN's about 5 to 7 years late to that party. Apple's doing this because they want sports rights. That's essentially what they're doing here.
Now, granted, you know, like the MLB Friday Night Baseball hasn't done them. It hasn't been received too well. But the MLS Season Pass, you know, I'm not a big soccer follower, but from what I can tell, that MLS Season Pass has been a big success for them.
Right, but essentially what they would be getting: baseball, NBA, NFL, soccer, UFC. They would be getting everything if they bought through ESPN. That's what Apple's looking for at this point. Like you said, they have soccer, but who's really watching the soccer? I mean,
my question is, if Apple buys ESPN, does that mean like Apple ESPN Plus and Apple TV Plus are basically going to merge, and it'll just be Apple TV Plus?
The big thing, I was talking to my parents about this the other day, where I said, what's going to happen? Is it all going to go behind a paywall? Like, is that what's going to happen? I mean, technically, we're already paying for the cable channel for ESPN for most people who have it. Right. But if you put, I'm telling you right now, if this all goes behind a paywall, you might as well say F you, ESPN, because no one's going to watch it. That's what's going to happen.
I mean, we just talked about a couple of weeks ago, ESPN might just go behind the paywall, period, point blank, even without Apple.
And that would be a mistake, because think about it. If ESPN is a pay product, people are already pissed off with ESPN with everything that's going on, the layoffs, the politics, the COVID policy issues. There's enough problems with ESPN. Sage Steele, who we talked about last week, left because of the pending lawsuit that she had.
I'd say, Nick, you and I have, even Zan have talked about it, separate conversations, but like, I mean, you know, do you think about the pricing at least from my perspective as a combat sports fan, because we mentioned the UFC about how you have the 4.99 or whatever, 5.90, whatever the paywall is right now for ESPN Plus. But then you have for the UFC pay-per-views and even the boxing pay-per-views, it's another 50, 60, and even in the case of the UFC, $80 for pay. And I said, if they do what they usually are doing right now, and at the end of the year, start of next year, raise it to 85, I'm gonna have to seriously think about, not purchasing some of these pay-per-views just because that's expensive as hell.
Okay, but here's the problem. And again, my parents made a good point, and then I thought about it too. The leagues don't care. The organizations don't care. It's their product. It's their proprietary product. If you don't want to pay for it, they're basically going to say, your choice.
I know, but it's also just
I'm not saying it's right. Let me be clear.
I got to be responsible for my finances too.
No, I'm agreeing with you 100% because I told you I'm tired of everything being put behind on the Plus platforms. Look at what baseball, Apple TV Plus on Friday nights. How many people are watching that? Hundreds, maybe? Hundreds? Maybe thousands? That's being nice.
I don't know. I mean, Nick, we don't know the numbers for UFC pay-per-views anymore because those are now Dana White has expressed those are now the property of ESPN. So ESPN doesn't want to give them out.
Here's the other problem. So anything that goes behind a paywall, they're not going to share the numbers with you. And the reason they're not going to share the numbers with you because if they share the numbers with you, the companies are going to say, F you, I'm not paying you for the Plus platforms. But the Plus platforms are more for, we want people to buy product. We want people to do this. And think about this. Amazon with Thursday Night Football, or Peacock with their, Sunday morning baseball or whatever.
And they're going to get a Saturday game right before Christmas. They're going to get one of the NFL playoff games now.
The exclusive game on Peacock. The playoff game. The playoff game that's going to be exclusively on Peacock. These leagues don't care. They don't care about the fans. What do they care about? I haven't done this in a while, but where is it? There it is. What do they care about? Money. They don't care if the fans can watch. The Amazon deal is, I think, $11 billion over 10 years or whatever. They just want the money. They don't care if the fans can watch it because that's just money in their pocket. Same thing with the Penn and the ESPN deal. They're getting $300 million a year. They're putting it on their bottom line because they just want the money. They don't care what it does for people.
Well, you know what? We care about you. We care about all you viewers and listeners, and we thank you for your support. And thank you as we end another edition of Empty the Bench here. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Network. Make sure to follow us across social media on Facebook, Instagram, and I had to stop myself from saying Twitter because it's X at ETB Sports. Follow Empty the Bench Podcast Network on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at ETB Network. YouTube.com/EB Network. Again, hit the subscribe button. We're at about 510, 511.
511 now as we speak. The one thing I'll say before we go also is our Football Friday preview date is now in the book. Well, at least when we're going to tape. It'll come out in the next day or two.
So I think we're going to air. We're going to actually split it into two this year. We are going to air our AFC preview on Wednesday, August 30th, and we are going to air our NFC and postseason stuff preview on Thursday, August 31st.
Let's just say for the network this year, there's a lot more people involved in the football previews and the Football Fridays this year. Just a little tease of what's coming up. We are going to have some gambling segments involved in it. We're going to have some fantasy stuff involved in it. There's a lot more people involved in it. So much bigger production this year for Football Friday. Maybe you and I will do a small video just as a little preview tease for what's coming out with it. Just maybe we'll go live on a platform. We haven't done that in a while. So just to announce our Football Friday. Obviously, Behind the Curve will tape on Thursdays. It'll come out on Friday, probably around noonish.
Yeah.
And then other stuff we're working on as well because the football season is back. It's back. Football season is content season. So you're going to get a lot more out of us. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/ETV Network. The Football Friday will also be an audio platform this year also. So you'll be able to take it on the go as well, like you do this show and every other show that's on this network.
Yep. And don't forget to go to etbpodcast.com for all the great content, some information about the network, and some great blogging from not just Tank and Dictor, but also Jennifer Cade and a couple of the other new bloggers. I think her name is Brianna, who just put one up about. Well, funny, we talk about NFL and we talk about pricing. Put one up about the NFL Sunday ticket and the cost of that to get it for YouTube TV.
That was an intriguing article. I had a chance to read a little bit of it. It's a good one. And if she's going to do stuff like that, I can't wait to see the rest of what comes.
Which, by the way, just like her, I am also guilty. I have given in to the price so I can have all the football access on Sundays.
Oh, boy. But I guess that's it. As what are we now? 3 episodes away from 200?
Yep.
3 episodes away from 200. We'll try to plan something for 200. I don't know. We'll figure out something. But for Albano, I'm Nick Morgasen. We'll see you next week for episode 198. Good night, everybody.
Take care.